The rusted cry in the wind. The wind howled through the dead metal like a ghost. Empty cans rolled, broken wires danced in the dust, and somewhere far away, something cried. Jax tightened his scarf and stepped deeper into the junkyard. This place wasn't safe after dark. But the cry? It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a beast. It sounded soft, scared, alive. He moved slowly, stepping over twisted metal frames, shattered engine parts, and long dead robot limbs. The junkyard was endless, a graveyard of machines from a war no one wanted to remember. But now it was home to the forgotten, aliens, ex-soldiers, orphans, and scavengers like him. The cry came again, closer now, high-pitched, fading. He stopped, near an old hover truck flipped on its side and half buried in wires and sand. Underneath it, something small shifted. Carefully, Jax crouched down, pushed aside a sheet of scrap, and froze. It was a child, an alien child. Her skin glowed pale, blue under the dust, and her eyes, huge, bright, terrified, locked onto his. She was curled up like a dying animal, knees to chest, trembling. Beside her, wrapped in a torn thermal blanket, lay a still figure. Another alien, an adult woman, barely breathing. Jax didn't move. He knew what this meant. If the patrol found him helping aliens, they'd shoot first, ask later. He wasn't a hero. He was just a junk scavenger trying to survive. But the girl blinked, and a tear rolled down her cheek. Something inside him cracked. 10 minutes later, he had wrapped the girl in his coat and lifted the woman, light as a feather, bones sharp under her skin. He didn't know what species they were, didn't care. They were dying. His hideout wasn't far, just a metal shack buried under 3 broken ships and camouflaged with old solar panels. He kicked the door open and laid them inside. The little girl coughed, weak, starving. He handed her water. She took it without speaking, her eyes never leaving her mother. He checked the woman's pulse. Slow, but there. She had a deep wound on her arm. Burned, infected. He opened his survival kit and got to work. Hours passed. The sky turned purple. The wind never stopped screaming. But the girl stayed silent, watching him with those wide, glowing eyes. Finally, the woman stirred. Her eyelids fluttered, and she whispered something in a strange tongue. The girl gasped and held her mother's hand. Jax stepped back, giving them space. He knew they wouldn't trust him. Not yet. The woman's voice was dry, cracked. "Why, did you help us?" Jax didn't have an answer. He shrugged. "You were going to die." "No one helps our kind," she said bitterly. "Not anymore." "Well," he said, grabbing a metal rod and starting a fire in the corner, "I guess I'm not like everyone." The girl slowly crawled closer to the fire, holding her mother's hand. For the first time, Jax saw her smile. It was small, faint, but it was there. Later that night, Jax stood on the roof of his shack, scanning the horizon through rusted binoculars. He knew trouble would come. Patrols, raiders, snitches. Word spreads fast in the junkyards. He looked down at the sleeping mother and daughter. They weren't just any refugees. Something about them felt different, important. And now they were his responsibility. He didn't know it yet, but that one decision, to follow the cry in the wind, was about to change everything, not just for them, but for the whole junkyard. Roof of metal and kindness, the junkyard sun rose dull and red, painting the sky like old blood. It didn't warm much, just lit the rust and bones of machines that hadn't moved in years. Inside a hidden shack made of scrap and solar sheets, the alien girl stirred. She sat up slowly, blinking. Her mother was still asleep beside her, wrapped tightly in old blankets. The girl turned and saw Jax already outside, welding 2 bent metal sheets together. He was building something. She stepped outside silently. Her small feet made no sound on the sand. Jax didn't look up. "You're awake," he said without turning. Good. I thought you might have frozen last night. The girl didn't speak. She just stared at him, this tall, quiet human in patched armor, his face half covered in soot and goggles. He pointed at the side of the shack, where old planks and thick junk formed a rough frame. I'm making you two a proper roof, he said. You can't sleep in there like rats, not in this wind. Still, she said nothing, so he tossed her a screwdriver. You can help if you want. She caught it, surprised. Later, her mother woke with a groan. She tried to stand but fell. Back. Pain shot through her shoulder. Jax's rough stitching had kept the wound closed, but it still burned. The girl helped her sit up, gently holding her hand. Outside, they heard hammering. Sparks flew. The smell of burning metal filled the air. The woman narrowed her eyes. Where are we? The girl spoke softly for the first time. Her voice was small but full of awe. He's building a house. For us. The woman blinked. A human? By midday, the new roof was nearly done. It wasn't pretty, more like a bunker than a home. But it was solid, windproof, safe. Jax stood on the edge, wiping sweat off his forehead. The girl handed him a metal cup of water. He took it without a word. A small nod was all he gave. She smiled again, wider this time. Her name, he learned, was Aria. Her mother's name, Naira. They didn't come from the stars like most aliens. They came from underneath, deep colonies buried in mountains once peaceful, until Earth forces invaded during the war. Their entire species was marked unregistered, hunted, unwanted. They had run, and now they were just two more broken souls. In the scrapyard of the galaxy, night fell again. The roof held strong. Inside, Jax shared warm soup made from powdered protein and melted snow. It wasn't tasty, but it was safe. And warm. That was enough. Naira looked at him for a long time. Her voice was calm now, but sharp. You don't ask who we are. Why? Jax stared into the fire. Names don't matter in the junkyard, only choices do. She nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that had haunted her since she woke. Why are you helping us? He didn't answer right away. The flames cracked. Finally, he said, I was raised in a place like this, abandoned, beaten. I remember what it's like to wake up cold and not know if you'll eat today. He looked up, eyes dark and steady. If I don't help you, who will? Silence. For a long while, nothing moved but the shadows of firelight on steel walls. Then Naira said, You shouldn't help us. You'll bring death to your door. Jax smirked, sharp and tired. Death already lives here. He's just too lazy to knock. Outside, something buzzed faintly in the wind. A recon drone. Small. Silent. Watching. Unseen, it hovered above the junk stacks, recording a heat signature too steady to be scrap. It beeped once and flew away. Whispers of the patrol. Jax didn't sleep that night. While Aria and Naira lay curled under patched blankets, safe beneath the new roof, Jax sat alone on the edge of the junk pile. His rifle rested across his knees. The desert wind scraped the walls, and the stars, cold and distant, watched silently from above. His ears twitched. The wind was speaking again, but this time, it wasn't the same whisper as before. At the outer border of the junkyard, something shifted. A drone the size of a fist glided low across broken metal hills, silent, precise. It scanned heat signatures, logged unusual activity, then zipped back toward its master. Hidden among crates and shattered pods, two bounty scouts waited, dressed in dark armor marked with the sigil of the Earth-allied force. She's here, one of them said. The daughter. We traced the biosignal. And she's with a human? Seems like it. Fool doesn't know what he's sheltering. Then we don't kill them yet. We watch. They melted into the shadows like smoke. Morning light crawled slowly over the junk. Jax was already moving, quiet, fast, focused. He installed heat dampeners under the shelter, rewired broken tech to scramble energy signals, and disguised the new roof with carbon-scattered plates. Naira watched him from the doorway, her face pale but more alive than before. "You're building more than a home," she said. "I'm covering tracks," he muttered. "We've been seen." She went still. "How do you know?" Jax tapped a piece of charred metal, an old drone fragment he found near the scrap perimeter. Too new, still warm, and the skies too quiet. Arya peeked out behind her mother, eyes wide. "Will they come for us?" Jax looked at her. "They always do." Later, while digging for fresh scrap to trade, Jax found something he didn't expect. Deep beneath a stack of wrecked drones and old medical cargo pods, he uncovered a metal case, long and narrow. It had no markings, just a soft green glow along the edge. He pried it open. Inside was a power core, not human, not military, alien biotech, still active. He picked it up carefully. His fingertips tingled. This wasn't junk. It was rare, maybe even forbidden. He looked toward the shack in the distance. Was this connected to them? That evening, Naira told him the truth. She had once been a scientist, part of an underground, alien resistance working on tech that could cloak entire colonies. When Earth troops invaded, she destroyed most of it, but one prototype vanished. She thought it was lost forever. Until now. Jax placed the core between them. "This?" Naira nodded slowly. "That's not just power. It's hope." Meanwhile, far beyond the scrap hills, a signal pinged in the Bounty Scout's tracker. Confirmed area, live, protected by human. Potential resistance link, order received, observe. Do not engage. New order pending, kill or recover. Back at the hideout, Arya sat on the roof, her tiny hands twisting old wires into bracelets. She was smiling. For the first time in weeks, she looked like a child again. Jax joined her. "Why do you smile so much?" he asked. She looked up at him. "Because you do not," he chuckled. Smart mouth. Then she asked, soft and serious, "Are you going to leave us?" Jax shook his head. "Not while I still have breath." That night, Naira had a dream of fire, steel, and boots stomping over their home. She woke gasping. Outside, something moved in the dark. Not wind, not junk. Jax was already awake, holding his rifle tight. He whispered, "They're here." Buried circuits and buried truths. The junkyard didn't sleep. Not tonight. Metal creaked under invisible footsteps. Shadows moved where nothing should move. A low hum filled the air, too soft for normal ears, but Jax felt it in his bones. They were surrounded. Inside the shack, Naira was awake, cradling Arya in her arms. The child was shaking not from cold, but from memory. Naira met Jax's eyes. "They're close." Jax nodded, his hand gripping the old plasma rifle tighter. "You need to go underground. Now." He kicked open a rusted trapdoor under the fire pit. Beneath it, an old maintenance shaft twisted through the junk piles. An escape tunnel he never thought he'd use. "You built this?" Naira asked. "Years ago, for myself." His voice was steady. "But tonight it's for you." Naira hesitated. "You'll need a way out too." Jax smirked. "I'll find one, or make one." Arya clung to him suddenly, her small hands trembling. He leaned down, brushing dirt from her glowing face. "You're brave, little one, stay that way." Then he closed the trapdoor and turned to face the dark. The first shot came from the east. Silent. Clean. It vaporized the corner of the shack like paper. Jax rolled behind a wrecked solar panel, returned fire. Sparks lit the night. Drones buzzed, overhead like angry wasps. A red laser burned the sky. He ducked, fired again, and sprinted across the open junk, weaving between broken engines and shattered satellite dishes. He wasn't trying to win. He was buying time. Underground. Arya whimpered in the dark. Naira gripped her daughter's hand, whispering softly in their native tongue. "We've run long enough," she said. "But he's still fighting. For us." They reached an old junction deep in the junkyard's underbelly. Naira stopped. There, buried under a layer of crushed comms equipment, was an old metal hatch, one even Jax didn't know existed. She knelt and placed her hand on the surface. A soft pulse answered. The hatch opened. Inside was a glowing chamber. Walls lit with alien circuitry, smooth, warm, alive. Arya stared wide-eyed. "Where are we?" she whispered. Naira stepped inside. "Home," she said. "Or what's left of it." Above, Jax was bleeding. A burn grazed his shoulder, and his right leg felt twisted, but he kept moving, always moving. He dove into a hollow fuel tank, crawled, through a busted pipe, and finally dropped behind a junk loader. From there he spotted them, 2 bounty scouts in black armor scanning the shack. One held a tracker. It beeped faster as he stepped closer to the trapdoor. Jax aimed carefully, 1 shot. Clean. The scout dropped. The second turned, but too late. Jax tackled him from behind, slamming metal into his helmet. The man fought back, stronger than expected. Jax barely dodged a blade swipe across his neck. He elbowed the scout, grabbed the knife, and plunged it into the weak spot between armor plates. Silence. Breathing hard, Jax grabbed the tracker. Still active, still pinging. Not just Arya. Something else was calling attention. In the underground chamber, Naira connected the power cord Jax had found earlier. The walls pulsed brighter. A map lit up, 3D, spinning, full of alien symbols. Arya gasped. "It's a memory vault," Naira said. "Our last lab. I never thought I'd see it again." She moved to a console and placed her palm on it. A projection flared to life. Footage, a lab, Naira and her team, Arya as a baby, her father. Their voices filled the room. Arya stepped closer. "That's him?" Naira nodded, tears slipping silently. He was the one who made the tech that could hide entire colonies. He believed humans and aliens could share peace. But Earth feared us. The screen changed. Explosions, raids, screams, then static. "I ran with you the night he died. We were supposed to meet someone in the junkyard, but no one came." Arya looked up at her. "Do you think Jax is the one who was supposed to find us?" Naira didn't answer, but she looked back at the map. A glowing marker pulsed, Jax's shack, surrounded. She knew what she had to do. Jax dragged himself into the wreckage of an old mech suit. The cockpit was broken, but the controls still worked. He hot-wired the shoulder turret. The scout patrol had tripled, more were coming. He was out of time. Suddenly, the ground cracked behind him. A steel hatch burst open. A lift rose from below. Naira stepped out holding a control device glowing with alien energy. Arya stood beside her, eyes blazing like stars. "You found the vault?" Jax said, blinking. Naira tossed him the device. "Now help me light this place up." With the core linked to the mech, Jax turned the turret toward the sky. Energy blasted upward. Not a weapon, but a signal. Bright, beautiful, ancient. For a moment, the junkyard was filled with light, and all the world knew someone had survived. Raiders come at dawn. The first light of dawn didn't rise over the junkyard. It exploded. Flames bloomed in the distance, not from the patrol, from something worse. Raiders. Unlike scouts, these weren't trained soldiers. They were hungry beasts, half human, half mad, covered in blood, bone tattoos, and welded armor. They came in screaming, riding broken hoverbikes held together with rage and rope, and they were headed straight for the signal tower Jax and Naira had just lit. "Too loud," Jax muttered, slamming the vault hatch shut behind him. "We made too much noise. We lit a beacon, and they saw it." Naira's eyes darted to Arya. "We need to move." Arya gripped her mother's hand tightly, but her eyes were fixed on Jax. "Will they kill you?" she asked. Jax smiled grimly. "They'll Try, but they'll regret it. Jax led them through the lower tunnels, now shaking from the distant boom of exploding scrap towers. The old pathways twisted and cracked under the weight of new attackers above. "They're blowing their way in," he said. "Trying to flush us out." "Is there another way up?" Naira asked. Jax nodded. "There's a ladder shaft through the old coolant drain. It comes out near a pile of old solar barges. I'll get you there. Then I'll draw them away." But before they could reach the shaft, a blast rocked the tunnel wall. It collapsed behind them, sealing the exit. They were trapped. Above, the raiders howled like hyenas. One of them, a brute with 3 cybernetic arms, stood atop a crushed tower. "The core is here," he roared. "The alien tech they buried under our feet. Burn everything." His men threw torch bombs, setting the junk ablaze. In the tunnels, smoke filled the air. Naira coughed, holding Arya close. "She can't breathe down here. We need to go up," Jax said. "Now." He pulled off a hatch door and kicked through a rusted panel. A vertical shaft opened above them, 20 meters straight up, slick, narrow. Jax looked at Naira. "Can you climb?" She shook her head. "I'll lift her first, then I'll try." Arya, terrified but brave, nodded as Jax hoisted her up on his shoulders. But halfway up, the ladder groaned. Metal cracked. Arya slipped. And that's when it happened. The air shimmered around her, like water, like heat. Her eyes flared, pure white. She didn't fall. She floated, slowly, steadily, her body wrapped in a gentle hum of glowing energy. Sparks danced around her hands. Jax froze. Naira stared, stunned. "My God," she whispered. "She's activating." Arya looked down at them, hovering effortlessly, as if a part of her had always been waiting for this. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. They emerged through the top of the shaft, just behind an old satellite. Wreck. Jax peeked over the ledge. Raiders everywhere. Burning scrap, smashing metal, digging through everything they could find. He turned back. "We have to make a run for the crawler." "The crawler?" Naira asked. Jax pointed toward the distance. "An old mobile mining rig buried in the dirt. I've been restoring it slowly. I didn't know why. Now I do." He handed Arya a flare. "When I say go, run and throw this as far as you can toward the east wall." She nodded, her glowing energy dimming into her skin again. "Go," Jax yelled. Arya dashed forward and threw the flare with surprising strength. The raiders turned, saw light. Too late. Jax fired an old grenade into a stack of gas tanks nearby. Boom! Fire erupted like a volcano, throwing metal into the air. Raiders screamed and scattered. Jax grabbed Naira's hand. They ran through the smoke, dodging flying shrapnel. They reached the crawler just as the ground shook again. This time, not from bombs. From a voice. A strange, humming voice. Deep, ancient, and impossible to locate. It came from Arya. She stood, in front of the crawler, her eyes closed, whispering in a language not even Naira recognized. Symbols lit up across the machine's surface. Symbols from the vault. The crawler's engine came to life. No keys. No power cells. No fuel. Just her. The raiders froze, watching this tiny glowing girl power a machine that hadn't moved in 30 years. Then they opened fire. Jax pulled Arya behind cover, returning shots as Naira climbed into the crawler's control pit. The whole frame groaned, but the engine roared louder. "Hotter! Get in!" she shouted. Jax kicked open the side hatch. "Come on!" Bullets ricocheted off the crawler's thick skin. Arya screamed, but not in fear. Her energy flared again. The front of the crawler burst outward, throwing 2 raiders back like paper dolls. She wasn't just a child anymore. She was becoming. As they drove away, crushing debris and flames beneath, giant metal treads. Jax looked back at the burning junkyard. It was no longer just a place for trash. It had become a battlefield. And Arya was no longer just a survivor. She was something more. Something powerful. Something hunted. the home that could fly. The crawler groaned as it rolled across the desert, crushing bones of old machines under its giant wheels. Smoke trailed behind like a ghost refusing to let go. Inside, silence filled the cabin, but it wasn't fear this time. It was awe. Arya sat between her mother and Jax, her eyes glowing faintly even as she slept. Naira had wrapped her in layers of cloth, but the light still leaked through. Not just from her skin, but from within her. Jax kept one hand on the crawler's steering lever, the other wrapped around a cracked mug of cold synth coffee. He looked out across the wasteland. "There's a place," he said softly. "Out past the dead towers. No patrols, no drones. Just sky, sand, and silence." Naira looked at him. "You've been there?" "Once," he said. "When I didn't want to live." She didn't reply, but her gaze softened. They arrived just before dusk. The crawler came to a halt on a cliff that overlooked a wide canyon filled with shattered wind farms. The giant fan blades still turned in the wind, slow and eerie like ancient guardians forgotten by time. Jax stepped out first, no footprints, no sensors, no sound. Perfect. He walked the perimeter, scanning for signs of life. Nothing. Then he returned to the crawler and began unloading the pieces. Old solar panels, metal sheets, wiring coils, a half-finished turret frame. "What are you doing?" Naira asked. "Building, again," he said. This time, for real. Over the next few days, something strange happened. Not just outside, but between them. Jax worked long hours, welding walls from scrap, building water collectors, setting up motion sensors from old radios. Naira helped him repair solar batteries, decoding alien interfaces with ease. She laughed once, just once, when Jax connected the wrong circuit and shocked himself. And Arya? She blossomed. She ran barefoot across the sand, no longer hiding behind her mother's coat. Her powers still flickered randomly, glowing rocks, floating cups, but she didn't seem afraid of it anymore. One night, she asked Jax, "Can this place really fly one day?" Jax chuckled. "Not the place, but maybe something we build in it," she grinned. "Then I want wings, but peace never lasts." On the sixth night, a message crackled through Jax's old comm scanner. Faint, fragmented, resistance, alive. Tracker found. Project ARIYA. Must be static. Jax stared at it, fists clenched. "What's Project ARIYA?" he asked Naira. She froze, then sighed. It was a code name, Naira said later, sitting beside the fire while Arya slept. A weapon and a promise. "She's not a weapon," Jax snapped. Naira nodded. "I know that now, but back then we didn't have a choice. The project was about genetic convergence, fusing alien potential with human adaptability. To create something new, someone who could survive anything, hide from any radar, speak to any machine, power entire cities, escape extinction." Jax looked at the child glowing faintly in her sleep. "She doesn't even know what she is yet." "She will," Naira whispered. "The galaxy won't let her stay quiet for long." By morning, Jax had changed the crawler. He added wings. Well, not real wings, but he welded solar sail panels on both sides, curved outward like folded arms. They wouldn't fly in space, but they would glide across the dunes if powered right. The crawler was no longer just a vehicle. It looked like a beast ready to leap. Arya watched him work, her fingers glowing as she passed him tools. "This is our home now," she said. Jax looked down at her. "No, this is our start." That evening, Jax activated the scanner again. No new messages, but the map blinked, a blinking dot, far away, moving fast. He stared at it for a long time. "What is it?" Naira asked. He zoomed in. "Another crawler," he muttered. "But military." "Coming here?" "No," Jax said. "Not yet, but it will." That night, as stars burned across the sky, the three of them sat on the crawler's roof. Arya pointed at constellations only she knew the names of. Nyra held a glowing stone from their vault. And Jax, for the first time, let his hand rest on Arya's shoulder. They were no longer scavenger, stranger, and survivor. They were something else now, something the galaxy hadn't seen in a long time, a family, a spark, a storm waiting to rise. Skyward from Scrap, the wind that morning wasn't normal. It howled like it had teeth. Sharp, hungry, and coming fast. Jack stood on the crawler's roof, goggles on, staring toward the horizon. A wall of dust moved like a monster, huge, wide, and filled with thunder. But this wasn't just a storm, it was them, the Earth-allied crawler, full black, powered by fusion cores, 10 stories high, carrying soldiers, scouts, scanners, drones, and death. It had found them. Inside, Nyra was strapping Arya into a makeshift crash harness. Her hands trembled. "Is she ready?" Jax shouted, dropping into the cabin. Nyra looked at him. "She says yes. She understands what it means. She's a child, Jax. She understands more than we ever did." Arya looked up, eyes glowing, softly, steady and calm. "You said I could have wings," she whispered. Jax nodded, jaw tight. "You're about to fly, little spark. Just don't look down." The crawler's engines roared to life. Solar sails unfolded, wide and sharp like metal feathers. The boosters in the back shook with fresh energy. Arya had poured her light into every wire, every bolt. The ship wasn't just metal now, it was alive. Jack slammed the throttle. The crawler lunged forward, across sand dunes, over rusted bones of wind farms, past the last edge of forgotten Earth. Behind them, the Earth crawler opened fire. Explosions painted the desert red. Drones screamed, through the air locking onto heat signatures. One clipped the side of the crawler. Metal flew. Arya gasped, her glow flickering. Nyra pulled her close. "Focus," she cried. "You're the engine now." Arya gritted her teeth. The sails reignited. The crawler lifted, hovering half a foot off the ground, not flying yet, but close. Jack shouted, "One more hill. If we clear it, we can glide." The crawler surged up the last dune. Behind them, missiles lit the sky. One hit the back wheel. Flames burst. The crawler tipped sideways. Jack screamed over the comm, "Arya, now!" Arya's hands glowed like stars. She screamed, not in fear, but in power. Light surged from her body through the controls into the sails. The crawler rose. 1 foot, 2 feet, 4. Then, it lifted. It flew. The Earth crawler vanished behind them, swallowed by its own storm. Jax laughed like a madman, gripping the controls. "You did it. You crazy little, you did it!" Nyra wept silently, holding Arya as the crawler glided across the open canyon. For the first time in forever, they weren't running. They were rising, but peace is always short. A fleet of drones burst from the clouds, faster, smarter, loaded with trackers. One locked onto Arya's signal. It dove. Jax turned too slow. The drone fired and Nyra moved. She threw herself over Arya. Impact. Time slowed. Jax's scream tore through the cockpit. Arya's glow flickered violently. Her mother collapsed, smoke rising from her back. Blood, blue and red, mixed on the floor. "No," Arya whispered. But Nyra smiled. "Even dying," she smiled. "I told your father, you'd fly." Her fingers brushed Arya's cheek. Then her hand fell. Still. The glow around Arya didn't stop this time. It exploded. Light shot in every direction. White, pure, impossible. The drone turned to ash mid-air. The others paused, sensors blinded. Arya stood alone in the cockpit now, silent, bright, powerful. She wasn't a child anymore. Jax crawled to her. His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Arya didn't speak, but she took his hand and placed it on the throttle. Then she whispered, "Let's finish this." The crawler flew higher, past the canyon, past the clouds, past everything. They didn't stop until the Earth was a memory behind them. Years later, in the orbit of an abandoned station, stories spread about a flying crawler that landed like a comet. Inside, it was a glowing girl and the human who raised her from scrap. Together, they built something new. Not a ship, not a shelter, but a signal. A call to all the lost, the hunted, the broken. You are not alone.